Meeting Wednesday, November 13th, 2024 at 5:31 p.m. at the Oregon Municipal Building. For the recording, I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Maloney, seconder. Councilor Kirkbride, questions? All in favor? Contrary, motion carried. We're going to do the presentation of the 2025 budget, and we'll pass that over to the Chief Administration Officer, Mr. John Jackson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So here we are. Welcome. So as we get the slide geared up, like I say, we've arrived towards the end, not quite at the end, but getting close. So tonight's just the presentation to council on the 2025 budget for the public. The objective tonight.
Sorry, Don, I'm just, give me 2 seconds here. There we go.
All right, there we are. So objective for tonight is to provide the public council with the recommended budget for 2025. I know for council's sake, they've heard a lot of what I'm going to say tonight already a few times, but for the audience sake, we'll go through it. So obviously, through the process, we've had our public budget survey, which opened up the first part of September and ran until the end of September for a little more engagement. Our public consultation we had back on the 15th of October. And then we had council briefings on the 22nd with departments. And so here we are on the 13th presenting to council. So the outline really much the same as past. Talk a little bit about tax and water sewer rates, comments on those things, then we'll get into the budget highlights and pressures, some of the operating overview, and then the priorities. And then at the very end, we'll definitely have a discussion and considerations from the survey, as well as a discussion. So here we go. Taxes, well, everybody's seen this before, but we like for the audience to know, what's a mill rate. Well, it's equal to $1 per thousand property assessed value. So translates to 1/1000th of a dollar, or 0.1%. So property taxes are derived from two things. One is definitely the tax or mill rate in this case, but the other is the assessed values. And if anybody follows the news lately, obviously people are always concerned about their quote unquote taxes, but really what they're concerned about are their assessed values, more so because they have been going up, a fair amount over the past couple of years with the migration of folks from other places coming in and purchasing properties and whatnot. We won't talk about assessed values here because it's really up to the province through Service New Brunswick. But for those folks who want to check things out, if they visit the mynbpropertyassessment.ca, they can find lots of good information with regards to assessments and how that's done. The mill rate is determined by mayor and council, and so staff advice is obviously provided there, which we'll talk about tonight. Our taxes, property taxes account for about 86% of the revenue to deliver services within the town. So it's fairly significant to the town and how it operates. And just 1 cent increase on the mill rate in 2025 is equal to $156,000 in new revenue for Oromocto and $32,000 in Lincoln. So we have a 5-year plan, we put that out in accordance and we started our budget process in accordance with that 5-year plan. Been reviewed twice now by council, first time in 21 September 23, and then again in 22 August 24. And that what that had in it was a proposed increase rate of 1.5 cents for wards 1, 2, and 3, and 4 cents in Ward 4, and a hold on the non-residential ratio of 1.7 times the rate. If you want to find out more about that 5-year plan, you can certainly visit the website, and it's available there. But what we did do, as we promised in past consultations, is once we got our new tax warrant and saw the assessment base, we said we would give back anything we could above and beyond what our projected increase was in our 5-year financial plan, and we had projected a 6% increase, and we received a 6.55% increase. So good news. Based on that, we're able to give back about 0.5 cent on that proposed increase. So what does that mean? It really means 1, 2, and 3 in wards 1, 2, and 3 will go up 1 cent, and in Ward 4 in Lincoln, 3.5. So, what does that impact to the average homeowner? So this slide tries to represent what that would mean, and with some, and it's fairly straightforward. So if we just had the difference on the tax rate alone, and there is no assessment increase, then wards 1, 2, and 3 would be $30.11 lighter in the pocket, versus in Ward 4 is about $28.59. However, we all know that with assessment increases, that's not the reality. So the second set of numbers do reflect what that would equate to on a 6.55% increase, which is what we received on average for most folks. And again, that's based on a home assessment of 301,000 in Oromocto and about 286,000 or so in Lincoln. So what you end up with is $312 increase in Oromocto versus a $283 increase in Lincoln. So while a little bit up, hopefully it doesn't send people screaming through the doors thinking they're gonna move out of town because of $312. However, it is definitely more, and everyone here in this room respects that it's always a challenge when you're faced to paying more, but is a reality that we have, and we'll see some of that here in some future slides when it comes to the budget pressures. So, tax rate history, pretty straightforward. We put this in here just to reflect some of the ups and downs of Oromocto. You know, we're just now getting back in 2025. We kind of crossed that line through 2022-ish, where we're getting back to where we had a rate back into, 2015. So in Lincoln, they've always, when they were an LSD, they bobbed up and down depending on, how much they had spent, but being part of the province, there wasn't any necessary need to continue to hang on to money that wasn't spent, so it was always sort of an up down depending on costs through the province. A quick idea. So comparable mill rates, again, just to give people an idea, or Oromocto where we're at. We do have the 3 cities up there, although we put them there for reference because we don't generally like to compare ourselves to the cities, because they're like the Walmarts and we're the five and dime. So, but that being said, we're still fairly competitive with our rate comparatively speaking. More towns that we like to compare ourselves to, Woodstock, Riverview, Sackville, and Quispamsis, you'll see we're pretty competitive with all of those. And of course, we've added what would be our new tax rate at the bottom. So water and sewer rates, moving into that. So obviously we've talked a little bit in the last few years about water and sewer costs and how they can't be necessarily covered directly by tax rates. So legislation dictates that we're supposed to bill or charge our clients for the service that they receive. And so we do that to some extent. However, up until a few years back, we had to revise our billing approach. And there's two rates now, a fixed rate and a consumption rate. And this aligns more with other jurisdictions. It allows us to more appropriately share costs in the services. So for example, a pipe that's broken, even though someone may not use the water, it still needs to be fixed and there's a cost to that. So that's where those fixed rates come into play. You know, as far as reducing volatility on budgets, it's easier to budget a fixed rate because we know exactly how many meters we have. It's hard to determine how much everybody's going to use in terms of water. In the past, when it's been that and we guess low or we guess high, then we run the risk of running a deficit because we're not selling as much water as we thought. So fixed rates are easy. We know we have 3,500 meters times the fixed rate. Boom, we know exactly how much we can budget our revenues on, and it makes it a little easier and less volatile. So we're now entering year 3 of 5 in our financial plan with those fixed rates, where we are trying to increase fixed rates up to a max in 2026 of $137.50 a quarter. We understand that's been a lot for folks who were not used to fixed rates for years and years, and then seeing an increased fixed rate quite rapidly. But in order to deal with renewal and capacity issues that we have currently ongoing, we have to move this year to $112.50 a quarter, which is a $25 a quarter increase, so about $100 a year. We're going to offset that pain a little bit by continuing to reduce the consumption rate. So that looks like on average would help this person save about $5 per quarter. So the overall increase is about $20 per quarter on the household. So $6.67 a month. And by in turn, what that revenue generate for the town is about $263,000. So consumption rates is currently at $3 per 50 per cubic meter. We're going to decrease that rate by about 20 cents a cubic meter as we try to apply that greater fixed cost ratio while respecting the fact that there is a burden to the overall, ratepayer, and want to try to take that edge off a little bit. Long term, we'll continue to move towards a lower usage rate and that higher fixed ratio. And again, we'll try to keep balancing that and trying to respect that it does cost a bit more, but also helping on the consumption side with reducing water, creating efficiencies without totally jeopardizing our ability to maintain and operate the system. We'll have more, ways to identify this in some of our water and sewer planning through 2025 as we build some new water and sewer models, which we've been doing over the course of 2024. Water billing, so we're still not quite charging enough, but we're definitely on the right track in terms of following that 5-year financial plan. We're getting closer, so we're year 3 of 5, where we're gonna hopefully then be in a sweet spot where we should have been slowly building maybe 20 years ago and doing it in smaller increments, but now being forced to kind of get back up to that level so that we can at least tread water. Because we haven't done that, we're still carrying deficits from previous years, so about $48 of your bill on water and sewer goes directly to paying the deficit. So boom, it's gone, it's already money that we've spent, we're just trying to pay the bank back. So we have about $567,000 in shortfall still. So that shortfall is being assumed by what they call a water cost transfer. So it's taking a little bit from our operations through our tax rates and putting it into the water and sewer side. And that is from an accounting perspective, legal per se, although what it can do if it's too big is not reflect the actual cost of the service back onto the bill. So for now, we're still just a little over $500,000 short, and that's why we continue to try to push those rates back where they need to be, so we can cover those costs. The big thing here that we want people to know is that the base gives us water. So we're a client of the base. They sell us water. A lot of people don't understand that. They think that we sell them water, which we do, but we're kind of a middleman. So it's kind of a strange thing. The base a few years back realized they were undercharging, and so they had a study done to say they were undercharging by 185 and 285% on water and sewer respectively. So this put us in a position where they wanted to negotiate how to get us back into the right area for them. And again, this goes back to decades of just not paying attention. No one's fault in this room, but here we are trying to deal with it now. So in 2023, we negotiated through 23 to 26, 15% per annum increase. So it's a fairly steep increase, but at the same time, it's something we felt was palatable and we could do it. And it's certainly not close to 185 or 285% because that just wouldn't work for us. But what we really want people to know that 15% increase on the water is going to account for 219,000 of the 263,000 that we said we were gaining in the addition of the increase of cost. So really what that leaves the town with is about 44,000 after said and done. So not a lot of money. I know it's an increase to the ratepayers, but if we didn't do it, we would be going further behind and that snowball would keep getting bigger and bigger. What we do hope to keep doing as well, and with that money and leverage some of that money, is jumpstart on the placement of existing in-ground piping in projects. So a lot of our existing piping, especially in the old town proper, is 70+ years old. It needs to be replaced, and we need to get on some of that work. The other piece is that we have to build a new sewage treatment plant in our, Oromocto West to help service the growth and the capacity that we see in the west side, plus allow us to continue to sell more land for people to develop and build and grow our tax base in general. And that project alone is gonna probably be in the vicinity of $25 million. So comparison of costs on our water and sewer. Right now, we just want to show a comparison to Fredericton and New Maryland because they're next door to us. So our consumption rates are pretty close. Our fixed rates are still the lowest comparatively speaking. And our overall annual water and sewer rates are still lower than both Fredericton and New Maryland. So, you know, even though with the increase on an average household, we're still competitive when it comes to overall costs for those types of services. So I will say where we're headed is certainly we will be more than Fredericton, but we will be less than New Maryland, which puts us in the right place because I can't compete with Fredericton in terms of price because they're Walmart and I'm the five and dime. They've got the tax base and the amount of 6 times more clients to share the load than but I certainly can be far more competitive than New Maryland because I'm about 2 times bigger. So the same adage goes with that. So somewhere down the road, this slide's going to shift from us being the lowest of the 3 to being in the middle, which would be right. That's where we really should be, if all things were equal. So the highlights of this budget, what does it allow us to do? Well, it allows us to proceed with the Oromocto Community Wellness Recreation Project. We'll continue to catch up on delayed capital reinvestment. We will continue to deal with the growing costs of the water and sewer appropriately. We'll keep proceeding with planning a new sewage treatment lagoon and looking at trying to take over the responsibilities of the base water treatment, wastewater treatment plants because I feel I can do it cheaper. We'll begin to reinvest in aging water and sewer infrastructure, keep delivering on the same level of services that people expect, and we can still meet our major investment targets outlined in our 5-year financial plan. What it won't let us do is replace all of our aging fleet, firefighting vehicles and equipment. It won't allow us to catch up on all the capital reinvestment needed in terms of paving, street lights and storm and water. If we replace everything that we know is at or near the end of its lifespan, we're talking about $200 million in 2024. So we definitely won't be being able to do all that in 1 or 2 years. And the other thing is we don't have any extra money to spend beyond our means, so we won't have any unbudgeted projects or wants beyond some of the things you'll hear tonight. In the highlights in general, on the revenue side, that's how it shakes down. It's about 16.7 million in tax, and then PILT, which is the federal monies that the base pays, so payment in lieu of tax is another 7.3. So there's your 86% that comes in revenues, and the rest of it's a small part of community funding equalization, which is our grant, which is shrinking to 0 by 2027. And our non-tax revenue accounts for things like permits and licenses and fees and so on and so forth. On the expenditure side, our public safety, which includes fire and police, puts you at, you know, a little over 8 million, almost $9 million. General government's at about 5 million, which is more or less, you know, all of our different departments with exception of public works. So we've got rec and culture in there at about 2.4. Environmental health, which is our garbage and recycling, 1.2, debt service at 1.4, and our environmental development at 908,000, which is mostly our planning compliance part. So the known facts, we know our population based on 21 census is 11,910. That's the number used to calculate our regional service charges. So wards 1, 2, and 3 tax base for 25 is sitting at 1.75 billion. And Ward 4 is sitting at 0.316 billion. So the total tax base for 25 is just a bit over $2 billion. Now you will see the province is applying a 10% cap on spike protection, and about 37% or more folks receive that protection. And what that really means is that if your assessment had gone up by more than 10%, you weren't charged for it in that year. They kind of delay that, which is great for the individual if your assessment went up more, but it's a delayed revenue generation for the town because it doesn't receive it until such time as the homeowner pays it. So that is good and bad, good individually, but in times when things are really spiking, it kind of edges the flow from in terms of the revenue that the town gets in any one given year. So the considerations for 2025 on water, again, that revised billing approach of our fixed rate consumption. So we're desperately catching up on recap of aging in-ground infrastructure. So old failing pipes and sustainability due to climate change. So a lot of our pipes are not big enough anymore, unfortunately, compared to what we would replace them with. So we're still trying to fund operational deficits as we spoke to before. We have the new sewage treatment lagoon in Oromocto West that we're starting to design and plan for. We have hopefully a transition of ownership in the next few years of responsibilities from wastewater treatment to water treatment from DND to the town to hopefully unburden folks from that 185 and 285% increases and take that on as part of our day-to-day activity. Our new community wellness and recreation center, you know, we already have a commitment for 50 million on the design, and so that in itself, as we move along, does require small pieces of those mill rate increases to go towards the construction and future debt servicing of that new building. Planning for the future, obviously, we're still working with asset management strategies, studies, design for major capital projects. And there's always the cost of local governance reform. Right now, we sit around 330,000 that goes towards the Capital Region Service Commission, which prior to would have stayed in town. So, you know, it's money that we send out to the region to help the region for that. And nevertheless, we've got to cover that cost, which is, you know, not insignificant. So the main thing for considerations really is if you don't invest in new, then you don't grow your tax base. And if you don't grow your tax base, you continue to raise tax rates to offset an increase in cost. And if you keep continuing to raise taxes to offset your increase in costs, you lose your current base. So those are things that we don't want to do. We're trying to make investments to keep growing our base so we get more people to share the load as we move forward. So again, some of the big pressure items for 25 specifically. So we're going to move into abatement, environmental and demolition costs of old Hubbard Street School, which will be the site of the new Community Recreation Wellness Center. That's about $1 million. The region service fees, there's that 200,000 plus the loss in unconditional grant of about another 130. That's where I come up with the 330,000. Or 332 more specifically is the line below. Our water sewer costs, we're still facing increase of 15% from the base, which isn't insignificant, given that this year's CPI, so our growth this year inflationary was about 2.6%. So still far greater than that. Catch up on delayed reinvestment. Again, if we did it all, it would be about 200 million. Treatment lagoon is 25 million. Inflationary operating costs that are exceeding those CPI costs are things like power, fuel, materials, equipment, and labor are still extremely expensive and have inflated way beyond that. Paving costs are rising by about 20%. Electricity is 7.7 on street lights and 11.3 on buildings. And our operational maintenance of fleet and building, so fleet budget's up about 6.4, building budget's up 19%. And this is where I mentioned that building budget will only continue to get bigger until we're able to divest of some of these old buildings and invest in some new. And debt repayment, we're still at about 3.3 million, which sounds like a lot, but we're actually in pretty good shape as a municipal entity in that regard. So in 25, where do some of these things go more specifically? So in paving and road construction, we're going to be investing about 1.55 million in 25, so up a bit from 24. Water and sewer, you'll see that at 3.3, which is up significantly, but that's our wastewater treatment or lagoon predominantly. Our building maintenance is up again, but this is a result of our whole aging infrastructure that we need to reinvest in. Parks and Rec is down slightly, but that's because we're just on the finishing touches of a parks master plan, and we're hoping to have some better guidance in 2026 when it comes to that. Fleet and equipment's at 1.27 million, again, just trying to catch up on some of that. And then our community recreation or wellness and recreation center this year will be about 1.48 million. And for a total investment on the capital side of about 8.3 million. So where does that money more specifically go? So in paving and road construction next year, this is based on priorities identified through asset management data. So that's systems that look at the condition of the asset, if there's anything under roads that need to be repaired, because it makes no sense to fix a road and then rip it up. So we're developing better management that way. So for next year, the three that were at the top of the list that we can achieve for that 1.5 million is Laurier, Fraser Avenue, and Demore Street. What's just below that, and it hopes to come up through the next, in 26 will be Doyle, Finnemore, and Harris. So those are kind of the big ones on the plate that we hope to get to in the next couple of years, but for next year, the three on the screen are it. On our water and sewer side, we have a sanitary force main down on Wood Street in the old Public Works Department that is needing desperately to be recapped. It's 71 years old. It's been in the ground a long time, and it services a large part of town when it comes to pumping sewage back uphill. This is something I do not want to have breaking in February. I would much rather replace it and make sure that it stays good for a long, long time. And of course, our West Sewage Treatment Lagoon is on the docket as well. We spoke already about that. As far as fleet and equipment, there's several things there. We have a new tractor, and that's for our parks and our fields. Our bucket lift is to help people reach things high up in the air, and bush hog broom. These are all things that are needed to keep our bush hog for our trails, to keep trimming some of the bushes back and whatnot. Our radio equipment for fires, a new system that they're rolling out in order to take care of that. There's some rescue equipment, some training equipment, some small vehicles, and again, some lift station pumps and door replacements that need to be upgraded as we go along. Continuing on in buildings, we have our Hazen Center and Town Hall HVAC, so our heating and ventilation systems in this building and our Hazen Center need to be replaced. It's shocking to think, but both these buildings are 25, 30 years old now. And that's about the useful lifespan of a lot of these systems. So we're faced with having to look at that. Our fire department had an issue with exhaust ventilation, which we'll fix. We have some traffic light control sensors, which we need to replace. Our engineering public works is putting in a generator transfer switch, because what we have learned over the course of the past year or so is, unfortunately, with people cutting wires, thinking they're gonna make all kinds of money, it's put our engineering and public works building oftentimes without power, which is difficult when we have a bunch of machines that we want to get in and out, and people who need to work to service the community. So we'll do that. And our small craft aquatic center needs a new roof. On parks and recreation, you've got our Hazen ball field and tennis court lighting upgrades. We'll have a trail accessibility upgrade complete on the gateway so that the whole loop will be accessible. Our Richmond Estates to Fredericton trail will see some refresh and some barriers out that way. Our anniversary park will get some new swings and communication boards. We'll have a pickleball pole and net, and some turf cleaning done as well. And in terms of community wellness and recreation, as we said before, we're working on the demo of the old school and continuing to develop the design in 2025. So some things that fell below the line, our turf does need to be replaced soon. Again, it's been 20 years or so, and so it's nearing its end of life. But this year, it didn't quite make the cut, but it's going to have to come up here in the next few years, no doubt. Other road and water sewer infrastructure, again, you mentioned Finnemore, Doyle, Blackwatch, Harris, Legier, they're all on our list. some doors here in town hall that need to be replaced are on the list. And doing a facilities assessment on base for the wastewater treatment plant and water treatment plant is also on the list, but this year wasn't as critical because we're probably 3 years out from realistically taking some of that over. Considerations from the survey, just a quick recap for you know, what we did there. We identified through that month and correlated responses, 5 priorities, particularly by the public in that survey. They talked about public health, affordable housing, infrastructure renewal, investments in active living, and curbside recycling. So on the public health side, we do have a committee healthcare action committee who's trying to tackle some of those issues and be a voice to the provincial government, which ultimately holds that file. Affordable housing, we're working with Ignite, who's our economic development partner in the region to help with the strategy on affordable housing. So we continue to move forward on that. Infrastructure renewal, again, we've spoken to that here already. Investments in active living, we will have a parks master plan ready in the early 25 and look to develop more of our parks, trails, and rivers. So we hear people there. Curbside recycling, we will be negotiating with a service provider to provide this service in 2025. I will get it done. And so that's something that we are eager to be able to roll out in 25. So with that, the comments were wellness, so encouraging people to get outdoors of all ages, so that was nice. Recycling, people want more. We've heard a lot about that. They want curbside. People wanted more police and related bylaw enforcement, so we will continue to work with the RCMP, but more so we are adding some capability in our compliance division for bylaw enforcement as well. A lot of people talk to 2 new ice surfaces, which we won't talk about through the budget tonight, but definitely was on the list. And a lot of people wanted to lower the current tax rate. So those were the big reoccurring comments. And I like to point out that the first 4 do not match the last one, unfortunately. But this is an uncommon. I know myself, if I given a choice to pay more or less, I would obviously want to pay less. But if we want to do the other 4 bullets, there's just not really a way to make that happen. So, again, considerations for the future. There's still a lot of unknowns with regards to the new model and governance. I'm hoping that with the new provincial government in place, we can move forward and find out finally what they're going to do fiscally for us. They promised to do that in 25 or 24, and it didn't end up happening. So hopefully in 2025 we'll know more. Power rates, as people have heard, if they've watched the news lately, they just permitted ND Power for another 19% rate hike over the next 2 years. I told people at last month's meeting, the town pays about $1 million every year just for power. So that will have an effect on the bottom line as they raise their rates. So that's something you have to be mindful of. Paving costs are up, materials and equipment costs are up. If anybody's paid their driveway or done a reno on their house lately, they probably noticed that. we're no different. Our paving and our costs for the same things are going up, just the same. We put together a tightly balanced budget, and, you know, in the past, we've mentioned we made cuts and we stopped and delayed purchases to the point where we really can't delay anymore without further affecting level of service, which we heard people don't want that to happen. So we will stay true to that and try to keep delivering those services to which people have come to expect. It doesn't give us any flexibility. We built no cushion into this budget. That being said, we still feel comfortable that we can handle little ebbs and flows that come at us. And you know, in the future, we need to be able to manage a mortgage of $2.5 to $3 million to complete the build of the community recreation and wellness center and invest in that new sewage treatment facility. When you put those two together, you're probably looking at completed costs anywhere in the range of 75 to 100 million just for those two things. So nothing's cheap, no doubt, but we can make it happen if we follow the plan, and hopefully everybody will be on board. So recommendations to council for the 2025 budget is to approve the overall budget, increase the mill rate to 1.4301 and 0.9757 for Lincoln. So that's 1 cent in wards 1, 2, and 3, and 3.5 cents in ward 4. Hold the multiplier of 1.7 on non-residential properties. Increase the fixed rate on the water billing side by to $112.50 a quarter, and reduce the water consumption rate to $3.30 per cubic meter. And that is it. So with that, we'll certainly open up to the floor. If there's any questions, concerns, you know, we will attempt to address them.
Questions or concerns, from the mayor?
Thank you, Mercy. My only question is, and I know this is the second time that we've run through it, so, with the phase 2 of the Recreation and Wellness Center, I'm correct, am I not, that regardless of what the estimated cost or in which manner we go about proceeding to do it, that phase 2 is, it has to be done regardless. So whether or not we go with one large facility, a phased approach of do one piece and then add to it later. Phase 2, you still have to demolish, you still have to do the plan and come up with plans, because I think the number was 1.465. About 1 million of that is simply like demolition and preparing the actual site for whatever will come.
Correct, yes, yeah. So we've got a nice site over there. It's centrally located. It's in a good spot for walkability. It's close to schools. It'll be close to, you know, nursing homes and hospitals. There's a lot of synergy there. But the first thing we have to do is get rid of that awful looking building over there right now. And so that is definitely gonna need to be done one way or another.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Don?
Thank you, Richard. And so the approximate 75 to 100 million, that is the total anticipated but not our cost to the town.
That's right, yeah. So that would be total construction cost at the end. And that would not be the town's part, if you will. Most of these projects will secure funding from provincial and federal partners. So our hope is to be able to collect about 2/3 of that cost from provincial and federal groups. So really the town share, instead of 75 or 100, is more like 20 to 30.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Taylor, you have a comment?
I don't have to look for employment. Okay, don't do it. I can afford next year.
Yeah. And we will get you a paper copy.
Okay. Then we'll move on. We'll move down to administration. Start with 4A, the New Brunswick Medical Educational Foundation request. We'll handle that.
Yeah, thank you, your worship. So this is just further to the discussion we had with the group last month. So the takeaway there was, come back with what that would mean more specifically to Oromocto. So for those who were able to, take a look through the request for decision, I did meet with Ms. Long and her cohort. And so essentially what we ended up with is there's 3 ways to be able to do this. One is an endowment, which is just a one-time sort of, here's some money, that sort of thing. The other one was a flow-through award, which is more so when you have donors who commit, more than 5,000 a year, and then there's general donation of any amount. So when you looked at all 3, we talked about that, I guess the second option, which was the flow through. So that is where we would support a student at 5,000 a year for 4 years, and in turn, they would agree to sign a memorandum of understanding that they would come to the town, and I did put a draft in there that they provided more specifically for the town. And and as you recall, we did allocate the 5,200 through our grants to organizations to do this. Should you be willing to proceed with the recommendation of agreeing to the flow-through award of 5,000 for 4 years, and we'll make sure we allocate funds in subsequent budget years in the same account, which is under grants to organizations. So if there's any questions to the detail, certainly.
Councilor Margolis?
Yeah, I think my biggest thought about this, I think we like the idea of supporting a student and coming this way was the guarantee that they were gonna come here. Now, I noticed when they did the presentation, they just basically said they were going to speak strongly to the committee, which the decision comes down to Verizon itself, I think is where they said.
Yeah.
Is there something new in the meeting that you got that kind of gave us a little bit more of a concrete answer that we will see this student we support for 4 years of here?
I wouldn't say it's 100% guarantee, obviously, and nobody can make that commitment, because the fact is Horizon's the one who, gives them the green light to practice. But what I can say is they have developed a process where they work real close with Horizon, in conjunction with, I feel our group, once they know who that person is, will kind of take them in, and between, hugging that student for 4 years and kind of, giving them a relationship with the town, combined with the advocacy that the association is
It's just gonna naturally happen.
there's a higher probability that it will happen.
So
And
this 4 years, are you talking about the stewardship with them while they're in school?
yes,
Like, and then, okay.
so what happens too is that the agreement as it's written is that for some reason they can't practice here, then that monies would then be returned. We hope that doesn't need to happen, right? Because we'd rather see the person
doctor, yeah.
practice here, but, that is certainly the, within the spirit of the agreement is, hey, but by and large, we're gonna give you this money and you're gonna come here and at least, spend 4 years here, so it's a year for year service. If we were to fund it for 2 years, which we could do, then the requirement on their end would be 2 years, but, as we heard here, they say that the sweet spot really is if you can get somebody to come here and they stay 4 years, chances are they meet somebody, they start to have a family and they develop roots, and then that way they're gonna be more apt to stay than if they're only here for a year or two.
And when you say not continued here and then refund, is that because they're not gonna do a practice in the province of New Brunswick?
It would be in this case that they weren't meeting the terms of our agreement, which would be, that they're not working here.
Okay.
Yeah. So they can't make a promise, and I understand that, because unless they can actually sign off on the hiring, then they can't say for sure, but they're very confident that, through the work that they do combined with the work that our group can do, once we know who that is, that the success rate is quite high.
Well, they had a couple of examples of people that went different, like in different areas and they followed through on their commitment because, yeah, okay. That was really my concern about this, so.
There's only one bump that might be in the way,
What is,
because Alyssa, she came to the capital service region last week and met with them. And so Mr. Smith was discussing ways that the commission would put money in, so that way we'd have to watch what we do, because if we have to if we put our own money in, and then they'll be requesting money from us. See, so there's gonna be a little conflict.
so when will we know that?
Well, we don't.
And to that point, this is where it sometimes drives the frustration of what happens with the region, which is in good spirit, obviously, but you get this duplication. What I would say is I don't think it'll be as simple as saying we're gonna do this and then here's the cut, because I know that it will lend itself back to a vote, which may not play out in their favor, if there's already groups that are going after, specific people already, like ourselves and like Fredericton, right? So, but we will have to consider and watch. What I would say is, if they use the ratio and it was 5,200, then our share of that would be about 10%. So be about $520.
But there's 14 identities, right, different communities.
Hmm.
So how do we put money in there, and then we're not gonna get 14, right? So
Right.
then we're gonna be fighting over who's gonna get it.
But if we're doing this other program and do this through the program and the 5,000 our way, does that not put some eggs in a different basket? for us?
Well, that's what we don't know, because they have different rules, right?
But isn't this program separate from that committee?
Yeah, yes, it is, yeah,
It
so we
is, but-
can fund it ourselves.
That's what I'm
no-
saying, we made a commitment to this in this committee.
Yeah,
How can they mess with what we're doing with this?
Because we could be trapped into paying into the commission anyway. So we have to be careful if
But
we get out of it.
but to be fair, if we're trapped with the commission, when actually, we're not guaranteed anything.
Exactly.
This is a sure thing hypothetically.
yeah,
But your point is that we might end up doing both.
Yeah.
And
If they
the
put-
second one is not a sure thing if it's that anyway. The only sure thing is the first one or double tap.
Yeah, exactly.
But to your point, it has to become a vote. If there's a lot of communities doing something like this and they all vote against taking it again. we
Well,
have a
the smaller
chance.
communities can afford it, so, but, and that's why it gets complicated then, because of the bigger communities.
And they're paying for everybody.
So we don't know what step he's going to go for, and that's the thing, that's the only thing holding us back, because this is great, we could pass it right away, but I don't think we should yet, because
Yeah, because we can, this is
we
not.
can, we
the time
can
to
pass
tell
it in
us.
theory, but, yeah.
Okay.
Pass it up.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we, the town, are paying into the regional commission X thousands of dollars. So every time a special project is taken on by the region, we have to pay more into that pot. That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, yeah. And
I
plus,
thought that's what that money was for.
The lump sum at the
assessment.
beginning.
Yeah. It's
but
not-
see, what happens is Fredericton and us pay the most, and they pay the rest, they pay peanuts technically, but we subsidize it.
I realize that, but what I'm saying is if they come up with, if the region comes up with initiatives, it should be out of that money that they've allocated for a year. They want to do another initiative, just like what we have to do. It's not in the budget for that year. It should go into the next one. So we have time to know what we're going to do and how much money we're gonna have to add to that.
I think the problem
For the
is they
same
haven't
thing.
given us a number in the first place. That's the problem, right? To your point, if we already gave our lump sum and we're locked into it, why should we be piping into every initiative? I think the problem is they haven't given us the original lump sum, so we don't know what we're paying for.
Oh, no, that's why it's hard to get into that.
Now we're getting into the money.
Yeah, for that, yeah, because we gotta look, you know.
Now they're telling you what the money is for.
Yeah. Because, we don't know what comes down the pipes with the regional service. Commission.
I'm okay waiting to hear for that. I mean, if it doesn't affect, I mean, obviously this is a great opportunity, but I agree. I don't know if we wanna.
And this is the best route to go.
Oh, I love this now, but you know, it's, like I said, I like the idea of teaming up with people to help young people get to a profession that we all need.
And if they take the 50,000 that they had for the medical equipment that they have left, I don't know what they have left. But there's no guarantee we'll have a share of that.
No,
So that's the thing, so we're right back in the woods again. But that's just food for thought anyway. But if we all agree to that, and if it works out, then, I mean, it's great. If it'll work.
They're a regional asset, and they have to work 2 days in every community.
Yeah.
It's just the farce of this. I mean, government, well, it's government reform, because so many of us didn't have a vote. So now we have a vote, and now they replace another level of government that's non-elected. Doesn't appear to have much of a direction, and it costs more money.
Yeah.
Great system.
And now with the new government too, there's gonna be changes and things looked at, we don't know what's gonna happen, but. Councilor Carr?
Hey, Your Worship, so my understanding is tonight, do we have to make a decision on one of these three options? Because delaying isn't, I mean, I guess we can not accept, but
Yeah,
I guess trying to understand where my head's going in that next step.
certainly procedurally you could table it, that's one thing you could do and table it. You know, for another month or for another couple of months. Or you have to, you know, basically reject it or, you know, or carry it. So there's three different options there that we can do. It's certainly up for discussion. You know, I'm not sure where the region will go. I don't know when they'll go. I do know there's a bit of a time issue because they like to award the amounts by March so that they can give it to the students so they're prepared. But
That's going to be a follow-up. Is it advantageous for us to get ahead of this for this year? Because if we don't move by a certain date, it could delay us yet another year, because let's you know, those people are getting those acceptance letters and they're finding it. So it would be advantageous if we're going to move ahead, have it done by, and we just need to know a date.
And we could table it until January if that was the will of council for sure, but, you know, so yeah, there's really those three options.
So is it budgeted?
It is,
Okay,
yes.
so, I mean, if we don't use it, it's
It's
still there, still there, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Butler?
Thank you, worship. I'm missing something there is. We understand that we fund the 5,200 for 4 years. If we don't get a doctor, come over Bucktown, we get the money back.
Yeah, correct.
So we're not-
Why are we delaying? I don't see the downside.
Because we might be asked to get more money for this reform and we gotta come up with
Well,
that.
guess what? They're asking for more money anyway.
I know. but
This is gonna be
that-
getting a doctor.
And it's
But
for,
that 5,000 may be something we need for that instead of this.
Yeah, but we're gonna get that, but if it doesn't, if the doctor doesn't tell me, I'll get the money back. I don't understand.
Yeah, but
what I'm
no,
saying.
no, that we had to wait 4 years, this reform, that money could be coming out in the next.
Yeah, but that's in addition to the 5,200, right? So if our share is
New
five,
money.
if our share is $520,
If it was
if it's one, using the math,
our shares.
and our guy goes to the regions, goes somewhere else, we get the $5,200 back, right? I don't understand why we're debating this. It seems pretty easy to me.
Well,
I
it
think-
sounds easy, but that's.
No, 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 but I mean,
How
We're
complicated.
risking $520. For what? We're risking $520 of that money.
For the money.
What are we,
Okay,
wait,
so-
I mean, what am I missing here?
It would only depend on, whether or not they were saying, we're gonna give 10 people. Then it's more, right? Because our share, and no matter what the bill, was about 10%, of the bill.
Get that, but we're doing this to get a doctor in Warren,
Mhm.
right? I could care less if the probably gets 9 more somewhere else.
No, but we might be dinged a higher amount
Yeah,
because.
I understand that, but we're still gonna get a doctor here, which is what we want.
Mhm.
We're willing to spend $5,200 a year for 4 years to get a doctor in Warren.
Mhm.
That's what you're asking us to do. So again, what am I missing? Why are we not doing it? It seems like a no-brainer to me.
Second Mayor?
Thank you, worship, and I don't think you're missing anything. I think, that's exactly what I'm thinking as well, and I think that most of us think, like, yes, let's move forward. I think it's all positive, I think if it's, we put the money there, we put the money forward, we know even through our survey, because that came from citizens, the citizens say healthcare is their number one, we know so many people out there without doctors. And if this is a way to put a carrot out there to be able to attract them, then we should. And the out is, if they don't, we get the money back. And, you know, I would even go so far as to say if 10% was our, you know, doing some quick math, 10%, even if they brought in 10 doctors,
5,200.
5,200 for 10 doctors? Pretty good investment.
Even above and beyond.
Right, so I frankly don't know why such a
Well,
long
that's not
discussion on
good.
such
Good
a,
way to put, look.
you know what I mean, like it's a win-win-win. So
I'm just saying
so I
that
support.
There's precautions there, that's because we could be trapped in paying the commission
More money.
more money, and we will be. And then this doctor, if we'll get that doctor, but we'll be also paying money in there for no doctor. But I mean, it's up to will of council, I'm just saying there's a precaution that we should be
There's
aware
another,
of,
yeah,
that's
there's
all.
something else.
So I totally agree too, but. Councilor Down?
Thank you, Your Worship. So basically what we're hearing, Councilor Butler just say, I agree with them, that put the money out and we'll get it back either way. But we're gonna put this money out plus with the unknown for X number of years as well. Be it another 5,000. So let's say it is 5,000 and this 5,000, that's 10,000 for 4 years at least and possibly longer, depending, not 10,000.
And the second
extra
5 doesn't guarantee us about.
But we have to pay it anyway. This way, we're paying it out and we're gonna get it back if we don't get someone here. But I think we're still gonna have to pay into the pot regardless, because we're part of the system.
We're gonna get a bunch of bills from RSC 11, well, doubt that.
That's for sure.
Okay, well, let's move forward then. Go for it.
Yeah,
If everyone's on that same page.
are we all warm and fuzzy?
The flow through award, number two.
So option B.
I like number two, yeah.
So, yeah, that's the next thing, so it's option 2 is the one you
I
want?
think it's got more of an impact to the individual,
It's,
especially if we're creating a relationship with them, you've got a person. You know,
yeah, okay. Warm and fuzzy. We'll move on to 4B, December council meeting dates. This might be even more fun.
Your worship, before you do that, only next Thursday, we have parent teacher meetings at 5:30. So I didn't know if you made you aware of that yet or not. So we either won't be here.
Oh, next Thursday?
Yeah.
Uh-huh,
on first.
21st, at 5:30.
I'm out for you.
I think,
Looking for drinks or
you, yeah, I'll just set my availability, not available.
Yeah, because it will, yeah, because it's
Everyone
always
else.
quicker.
If everyone else is here, we'll still have quorum.
Yeah.
And you'll have heard
I'll
all
be present.
the, yeah,
Thursday.
but.
Yeah, and there won't be a whole lot on it, it's,
Yeah,
unless you call it on next week.
we have budget, we have the budget, but, that's, should be just somebody will read it. So, yeah.
Yeah, we can make work. Okay.
So
Um,
December council meetings, I think Cindy, we have. We
Yeah, so you're-
typically just do the one meeting in December,
Correct.
so procedurally, in order to do this right, we're supposed to ask council and make sure council, is, okay with going to just the one meeting in December.
On the 17th.
No, your worship, what that would mean is when we say one meeting, it would be council and committee meeting.
Right.
And we typically, have it the 10th, in this case, it would be the 10th. So that would be a Tuesday. And then the Thursday would be our regular session on December 12th.
Oh,
Now,
so
that
all
is a
ahead.
week earlier,
That's right.
but that has been our past practice
Yeah.
to conclude, a little bit earlier in December.
Yeah, so 10th and 12th.
So it would be the 10th and 12th, CIC on the 10th, and then regular session on the 12th.
Yeah, because it would have been the 11th and the 17th and the 9th.
Right,
So I think, are we all in favor of that?
What's that?
So it's gonna be the 10th and 12th.
So last year we had it on the 13th and 14th.
right, it just depends on when it falls.
Because the next week, 17th and 19th.
We get close to Christmas.
So the 11th,
So the 10th,
oh, the 10th and 12th.
is CIC, and the 12th is regular session.
Send those invites out, how, accept.
Yeah, so is the invite's gonna come out like they normally do, and that way I won't forget.
Sorry?
Yeah, I just said, send it,
Yes.
I'll accept.
Yes, there's a few dates in December, just to remind you of the 4th of December being our annual, holiday reception or volunteer reception that we have at the Hazen Park Center, and then on the 14th, the staff, Christmas gathering. But I'll have that all for you
Yeah, we
guys
got email for one of them, maybe both. Yeah,
yeah, on the 4th and the 14th.
14. The 4th is already second, 14th.
When is the anniversary of the statue of Winchester? Heck, is it?
Westminster.
Westminster, yeah, when is it?
So is he?
That's, the basis of our legislation and everything, that's.
Yeah,
It's funny, that
Is
stuff
that a
comes in there and you can't get rid of
British
it,
thing.
whatever it is.
You can if you don't ask for those to be part of it.
Should be a public holiday, really.
December 11th.
it's what I need, and that's a public.
It's pretty important.
Well, just for councilors. That's okay.
That's right, yeah.
Now we need more grievances about holidays.
Oh, really?
Be bad again, John.
That's good. Especially the 17th is gone. And gone. Okay. Let's move on to 4C, 17th October 2024, regular session draft minutes are before you. If there's any errors or omissions, please let Jean know ASAP. And on that note, I need to over for adjournment. Oh, yes. Deputy Mayor Mooney, and most of us have already talked about this, but we want to bring it up.
Yeah, I asked for your indulgence, thank you. As some of you may have seen, there are communities in Canada which have, put in veteran sidewalks to commemorate the services of, our veterans to our country. And I would like to see us move forward in 2025 with doing the same thing. And one of the things I would propose is that we have such sidewalks installed by the Cenotaph and then by the Legion.
You mean crosswalk?
Sorry, what did I say?
Sidewalk.
Yeah, sorry, no, not that. It's a crosswalk.
All the way
Crosswalk.
That's just-
And,
All the way
it really is,
Crosswalk.
yeah, crosswalk, thank you. It's a
So I
very,
thought you meant.
it's really not, to me, it's not a cost issue at all. It's the fact that we as a community recognize the contributions of our service members. And I think it's something of high value and low cost, and I think it's something we know that we value our service members, and I just think it's something for which we could that I would very much support and encourage that we as a community do.
Councilor Bell?
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. I support the idea, but I would like to ensure that it isn't a one-time thing that goes down and then it's gone by the next year, like the colored crosswalks that we had before.
What do you mean?
I'd like to see it that only that is crosswalks in the rest of the town and not have the rest of the other ones, because like they want Palestinian crosswalks now and they want Jewish ones and they're fighting over all these crosswalks. I think that we should have the Legion ones, and that's it.
Well, we've already established, we've done, First Nations, and we've done,
Well, the First Nation one that's down in there is.
the color, the.
Pride.
Pride one. We've already done those in the town over the years, so I don't know if you wanna go backwards and just do one, but. That may be something, so you've already opened it. The schools did the pride ones, anyway.
I think,
We painted them again. We painted them
Yeah,
again.
and I think that's a good money well spent.
Yeah, and they were defaced too. But
And thank you, Rich, and depending on what that cost is. Because we did see this budget just being presented and it's kind of tight. So every time we want a new need or want, it tightens up even
I don't
more.
think it'd be a lot, but a good one. The only thing I
Especially since I've
want,
asked for banners.
I have a
for
kind of a
the past 13
logistic,
years.
Remembrance Day question about that. When we, of course, typically with Remembrance Day, we do all these things and then everything as per the poppy, everything has to kind of, for lack of a better word, go away after Thanksgiving. After Remembrance Day, is there something that when you do the crosswalks, it'd be something that, for lack of a better word, disappear respectfully? Because that would be the only thing, we worried that we put a Remembrance Day thing out there and there's an awful lot of people that if they see you with the poppy later that day will get upset. If you didn't, you know what I mean? So if it's still there in, end of November, are we gonna have any, but I'm upset about that.
you know, that's a good question.
Now, there's probably a product that you can do and it only lasts, cause like our banners, I know they're up now, but there's a good chance they're probably coming down in this week. Because you can't really leave them up much longer. That was the only
Well,
thing
it'll
I'm.
probably be good down this weekend, if that's what they're doing.
100%, so I'm just wondering if we do open this thing, maybe look at a product that obviously doesn't last as long as you want it to last, you really actually only want it to last for a couple weeks? Or would that upset anybody? I guess that's just my thought.
Deputy Mayor,
Counselor Carter, do you want to speak for me?
Councilor Carr?
Yeah, I was looking with Counselor Kirkbride, because I thought he was ahead of me. I guess into that, I'm assuming if we look toward the Legion for guidance on that,
Mhm.
perhaps they can probably
Yeah,
advise
I'd
what
like
would
to
be
know
best
that.
practice. I'm not well versed in that, but
No, me
I
either.
believe the other communities that I've seen around the country, there's different, some display the actual poppy image, some do not. So there's probably a little bit of consultation with, like Amherst, for example, is the nearest one I noticed has already done it. I'm sure they'd be willing to talk, It's a similar size
Wonder
town
if
or
it is
something. I don't believe they do, but that might be something they could advise. I'm sure the Legion probably could give advice on what the
Yeah.
policy is related to images or what they'd be comfortable with. So I just asked that maybe that's how we advance.
Because after a while, they get
They're the
the torn and they're gonna look pretty shabby.
Right.
Well,
Especially
that's-
over
That's kind
the,
of.
yeah. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Richard. I was simply looking for, not to hash out all the details of it. I was simply looking for, do we agree in principle with the idea? And then staff would have the time to do the investigation. We know that other corresponding sister communities that have bases in them, Petawawa just installed them. So I think that I would assume that they have done their due diligence in looking at the logistics of it. So I think if that's something that we could agree in principle, we can refer to staff to look into the details. How much it's gonna cost? Should we have paint that lasts a month? Is it something that you replenish 2 or 3 times a year, whatever it be? But I think it's the idea that we as a council recognize the fact that we are in a community that has a high number of veterans. And I think it's a very small thing that we can do as a municipality to recognize your service. And I think that's really all it is. So I appreciate if we did that.
Yeah, yours, but great idea, and I just noticed in the news recently. Several communities in Ontario have done it, some have done it for year round, some have done it without a poppy, it's just a red and white crosswalk, there's other ways to do it, so it's a great idea. And where would you suggest the possible spot?
Across the center tap, like going in right in front of the center tap,
And
in front of Legion.
Actually, what is our most used crosswalk in town? What a better place to put one than where the most people would see it.
I don't know
It
if
is
we
the
have
most-
those.
if we have one. We have traffic counts.
OHS would be the.
Or OHS.
Not necessarily by the people that pay attention. But I think the Legion is a good idea because of the connection, and down by the center tap, because on the day of Remembrance Day, that would be a nice visual. Yeah, I'd be curious to see how this goes into.
Again, just to, and if they, depending on the cost, of course, I don't think it would hurt to have one in front of the actual base gates either on our property. I don't know if there members would see it driving in every day,
That's nice too.
depending on cost, of course.
Well, they have their own crosswalks there that they got.
Well, they do,
Outside
they
the
change it,
gates.
they have the pride one now,
Outside the gates are ours, so.
Aren't they proud?
they have it inside the base, the pride one, but you're right, the outside one could be us. Nice ideas, I like it. I like how you think it. That's gonna be nice.
There's a variety of it.
Yeah.
There's no poppy, there shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I like, you got some old vets.
That's the one that they put in.
If you have a healthy pass.
That's the one that they put in
That's the
Petawawa, that's
people I'm
the
thinking.
community, so again, I think, I trust staff to be
I
able
like
to do a
it.
little research and let us know.
Yeah, that's perfect, good idea.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, Councilor Down.
Well, since that wasn't added to the agenda, I just have something to say. I think we need to, touch base with the OHS again and remind them that those cars need to be pulled up and around in the things 3 times this week, if they've been on the road. Or between last week and this week. I can understand raining the other day. They're not moving, but it's getting backed up again.
Oh, the pickup in the front.
I think just a general reminder that needs to be.
Yeah, and just on that, I would think, simply because a school is not a law enforcement agency. The speakers are not gonna be out there directing traffic, so I think that would be something that's probably best directed towards, the RCMP.
Is that who handled it the last time?
Yeah, that's who I would touch base with Sergeant Escalier and give them a note to just send a few patrols by and keep people moving.
And the only reason I'm bringing it up is because, traffic coming from from Ridgeview, coming down Miramichi, I'm coming up Mosses, they're trying to turn down Mitchell Street and then everybody is backed up from the car. And I'm just, normally it's not bad, it's been good, but these last couple of weeks, I know it's just starting to creep out onto it again. And I was particularly slowed down to see, and they're only at the top, that whole other half is not. Didn't have any vehicles in it.
Yeah, we're gonna find out real well when they. Not that I. Okay, anything else before we? Okay, I need a mover for adjournment. Councilor Kirkbride, seconder, Councilor Carr, questions, all in favor? Contrary, motion carried.